Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. So as some of you may know, last year in December I traveled to Australia for a whole month. I traveled around the east coast of Australia, and if you've never been there, then you probably don't really know what's in the east coast and what's in the west coast, but the east coast is actually the most popular region for young people and solo travelers and most first-time visitors who come to Australia. This is due to the fact that this is where most of the big cities and bucket list places that you think of when you think of Australia are located, such as Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Australia Zoo, the Great Barrier Reef, and lots more places. I was lucky enough to have a friend I knew living in Brisbane, so she helped a little bit with planning my trip, but mostly it was based on my own research. So I'm here to share with you guys my itinerary for a month in Australia, and I hope you'll find it helpful if you are planning your own trip. We started with Melbourne because we wanted to work our way up the coast, and flights to Melbourne were slightly cheaper from London than they were to Sydney. But bear in mind that we actually bought a one-way ticket to Melbourne and we didn't buy a return, so the case might be different if you are buying a return ticket, so make sure to do your research beforehand. 6 nights in Melbourne was the perfect amount of time to see and do everything that we wanted. It gave us flexibility to see things that we heard about along the way. We had a reserve for a rainy day. For example, we had 2 heavy rain days, so we didn't mind because we had plenty of time in Melbourne to see and do everything that we wanted. Melbourne is such an amazing city with a lot of cafes, restaurants, shops, and an incredible foodie scene and coffee scene, and so many neighborhoods to see that you will definitely not get bored, and I highly recommend spending 6 nights here. And if you are interested, I did make a vlog about Melbourne, so make sure to head to the link below to see that. I think Sydney needs no introduction. I absolutely loved the city, and the longer you can spend here the better. But if you have a month in Australia, I'd say spend about 6 nights here and you will not regret it. Spending 6 nights here gave us flexibility to see all the main spots, as well as going back to some of the places that we absolutely loved, such as Bondi. There are also some markets in Sydney that are only on weekends, so if you can, make sure to stay for those, as they have some amazing shopping here. Some of the other things to do in Sydney that you cannot miss include the Blue Mountains, Sydney Opera House, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and Bondi. Make sure to plan and put together a little bucket list before you visit Sydney, because it can get quite overwhelming as there's so much to do and see in the city. Byron Bay was hands down my favorite place on the entire trip. Honestly, nothing compares to the sunsets and the sunrises here. It is an absolutely magical place, so I would suggest spending 3 nights here to make the most of your stay. One of the things to do in Byron Bay is a hike to the lighthouse, which you need to do on sunrise or sunset. This actually took us 3 attempts. First night we actually were too late, and the second night we were again too late, and the third time it was finally a lucky day and we made it to the top, and it's absolutely spectacular. So I would suggest doing at least 2 nights here so you can make the most of your stay in Byron Bay. To be completely honest, I did not love Gold Coast very much. It is still a really lovely area with a stunning beach and an amazing beachfront, and a lot of people do like it, so I don't want to discourage you from coming here at all. But compared to Byron Bay, this was definitely a little bit of a different vibe. We were advised against staying in Surfers Paradise, which is a popular area among school children, and they have this event called Schoolies where school children will come to this area to party and to drink. Make sure that the dates of your trip do not coincide with the dates of the school children being there if you want to avoid that. Because of this, we stayed in Burleigh Heads, and it was a really lovely area with nice cafes and shops and restaurants. I would advise staying 1 or 2 nights in this neighborhood. Brisbane is a really nice city to see. We had a friend who lives here, that's why we stayed a little bit longer, but I would suggest staying 2 nights here, one to see the city and the other to visit the zoo or the koala sanctuary. We actually chose to visit the koala sanctuary instead of the zoo because we did not want to spend the whole day traveling to the zoo and back, and we knew we'd be exhausted. The zoo is a lot further out than the koala sanctuary, and the sanctuary only has Australian animals such as kangaroos and koalas, which is what we wanted to see. Noosa is a really lovely place to relax and learn how to surf and explore the town. It is so nice here, and I would highly suggest spending at least 3 nights here so you can make the most of the beaches and explore Noosa National Park and go dolphin spotting. If you are a solo traveler or a backpacker and looking to meet young people and want to stay in a hostel, I would highly suggest staying in Bounds, Noosa. This is where we stayed and we absolutely loved our stay here. It felt like a boutique hotel. It was full of young people, so many activities and socials, and they also have a shuttle to the city because it is a little bit out of the way, but it's definitely not an issue considering how nice it is. The duration of your stay on Rainbow Beach will depend on how long your Fraser Island tour is. There is really not much to do on Rainbow Beach, and people use it mostly as a stopover to get picked up for the Fraser Island tour. I would highly recommend doing a Fraser Island tour if you can, and staying at least 1 or 2 nights on the island. Unfortunately, we booked this too last minute and ended up doing only a day tour, but we absolutely wished we had stayed at least 1 night. Fraser Island is one of the most unique places I have ever been to, and definitely don't skip this one from your itinerary and make sure to spend 2 or 3 nights here. Again, how long you spend in Airlie Beach will depend on the duration of your sailing trip. So usually when you visit the Whitsundays, you will book a sailing trip. We only booked 1 night, but most people do 2 or 3 nights in order to maximize their time on board. But we found 1 night to be enough because there was a bit too many people and the boat was a little bit small, so we felt like it wasn't the most luxury experience, but we definitely enjoyed it. It was so much fun. But if you are planning to stay here, definitely say 1 or 2 nights on board, and with the rest of your time in Airlie Beach you can visit another island. We took a ferry to Hamilton Island, which was a beautiful and magical island. You can rent buggies here and you can stay in a nice luxury hotel overnight. More bucket list things to do in Airlie Beach include skydiving and the flight over Great Barrier Reef. This was honestly one of the most unforgettable experiences of my life. It was so beautiful and definitely one of the highlights of the trip. That concludes my 1-month-long itinerary of the east coast of Australia. If you do have more time, I'd highly suggest also going all the way up to Cairns to see the Great Barrier Reef and checking out Magnetic Island and seeing what else the east coast has to offer. But this itinerary will give you a really good overview of Australia and what the country is like. There are definitely other places along the east coast that are worth seeing, but this was my experience and it was the perfect itinerary for a first-time visitor to Australia. Let me know if you've been to the east coast of Australia and what you think of this itinerary, and if there's anything you would add. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!